This morning, I want to talk about financial health, and especially financial health for women. You know, I don't know if women are just, and I want to generalize this and make a sexist remark, but I had a wife once that we'd try to go to our financial advisor, and she would just glaze over. I mean, no interest whatsoever in financial decisions in their life, and I don't think that's very healthy. So, ladies, I want to talk to you, but not from my perspective, but from the expert, and that's Jayne Ellegard, who's been working with, finances for years and years. She's written a new book that's just out, Financial Empowerment for Women, Your Guide to Courage, Confidence, and Wisdom. Good morning, Jayne.
Good morning, Andy.
Thanks for taking time to talk with us and about this, I think, very important subject. But I want to talk about you, first of all, because you were in corporate America for a long time. You managed investments for Cargill, just a few dollars, a couple of bucks. Macmillan Families, Piper Jaffray, U.S. Bank, a couple of bucks here and there. I mean, pretty good. But then you walked away from corporate America to do your own thing. What happened there?
I did. After 34 years of working with individuals and clients, and Andy, I loved what I was doing. So it wasn't that I wasn't enjoying it. I had just fabulous clients that I enjoyed working with. But, I observed a number of times that there was a gap in the education that, well, quite honestly, that both men and women have received. But what I saw with women was, 8 out of 10 women end up on this journey alone. And so whether they never marry, they're divorced, or they're widowed. And so if they lost their spouse, and as you were just talking about with your former wife, they hadn't been engaged in the conversations around their finances, and it was scary, and it was overwhelming. And I kept thinking to myself, where do I send these women to get educated? Because they need to understand the basic concepts so they can engage in the conversation. So that was 2 years ago. I decided that was what I needed to go do. So I'm following my passion, and I am focused purely on financial education for women.
That's really cool, and walking away from that. But you saw this calling, and so you started Elegant Wealth. And the cool thing is you're not selling products or anything. You're just trying to educate and guide them on a path to holding on to money, really.
Well, exactly. I mean, I think once you understand your financial situation, you can make so many great decisions. And those decisions impact your financial future, regardless of, if you're 25 or if you're 65. And so you can make better decisions that are going to, really create a better future for yourself.
Absolutely. What is it about women? You need to educate me a little bit, because you said 8 out of 10 just haven't been involved and invested in it. Were you finding that the old stereotype of I just want to be taken care of thing and not interested in what was happening money-wise?
Well, I think that, what happens, when you get married, you're both working, you have children, and you divide and conquer. And what tends to happen is that women tend to, I'll take the kids to their doctor appointments, or, you handle the finance. And so you just kind of break things up that way. And it's kind of like, when you learn a foreign language in high school, and the further away you get from it, the more or the less, you kind of understand it, and it gets a little bit hard to jump back into it. And so I think that's what happens is women abdicate the responsibilities around the finances. And I've had so many women say to me exactly what you were just saying. I go to the meetings, my husband drags me to the meetings with the financial advisor, and I glaze over, and, I'm bored to tears, and I don't understand. It's like they're speaking a foreign language. And so they tune out. And yet then all of a sudden they have to step up and take their responsibility because they lose their spouse, or there's a sudden divorce, and so now they have to step up. And it's just scary. I mean, it's hard for them to then do that because they haven't been engaged.
Absolutely. Totally scary. And so you've written this book, Financial Empowerment for Women, Your Guide to Courage, confidence and women, or in wisdom. And so, so what are your guides? I mean, it's never too early for a woman to start learning financial management and stuff, but you have the 6 pillars. Let's talk about those in the book and what you're saying women really need to do to get reorganized here.
Yeah, the 6 pillars really take them from A to Z of what you need to know to really get your arms around your entire financial situation. And so, and part of what I'm trying to do here too, Andy, is, I want this to be more welcoming and inviting. The financial industry has been very male-dominated, very masculine. And as a result, I think a lot of the language that gets used isn't very welcoming to women. And so part of what I wanted to do was make it more interesting and fun. And it can be fun. I know it's amazing, but it can be fun. And so the 6 pillars, so it starts with the first pillar of explore your money beliefs. Because, so many of the messages that we heard growing up are deeply embedded with us. And we're making decisions today based on those messages we heard, and yet we don't even realize it. So taking that step back to just say, what did I hear growing up? I share that, my dad told me to marry a rich man.
Yeah, and so?
And I didn't, unfortunately, but we've done okay, but I married him. But he also told me to go into sales because there was money to be made in sales. And, so the message to me was money was good and that I wanted more of it. But other people heard money is bad, and so they push away from it, and yet there's so much good that can come from having money. And so, it creates freedom and choices, flexibility, and you can make a difference in the world if you want to, right, if you have money. So, I think starting there is really important, and I think that's something that gets overlooked in the financial industry. Okay. So I don't think there's time spent on that.
Right. Okay. All right. So in other words, try to understand where you stand with money and finances, and then what's the next step then? What do you have to set up? Well,
next we go to establishing your financial goals. So, it's really what do you want to achieve with your wealth? And so understanding, that, kind of what's out there for you and where you want to get to. And then third is knowing your net worth. And I think, net worth is kind of sneaky because, I always say, you want to know your numbers. And net worth has a whole bunch of numbers kind of wrapped up into one. So it's a little bit sneaky. But, I think that can really be, if you understand your net worth, it can be a gauge or a benchmark for you to, track how you're doing and monitor how you're moving forward. And so I think that's an important thing to understand. And then we get into, I call spend with purpose. And Andy, I like to say, I don't like the B word, budget.
Yeah. Who does?
Who does? It feels like punishment, doesn't it?
It does.
Good. So I call it treasures, promises, and joy. So tomorrow's treasures, what are you saving for the future? Your past promises, what have you already committed to, your mortgage, your car payment, and then whatever is left over is for today's joy. And so again, trying to put it into terms that are, make you want to do that, right? And not that feel like punishment, but that sounds interesting. Mm-hmm. And so that's pillar 4. And then pillar 5 is my favorite. Learn to speak investments.
Got to explain that.
Well, there's so much lingo and jargon that takes place. And, when somebody starts talking about stocks and bonds and asset allocation and diversification, if you don't understand those basic concepts, you shut down.
Right.
And you don't hear the rest of the conversation because you don't understand it. And so I use a lot of really fun analogies that help women, start to connect the dots. So when they're sitting down with their advisor, their husband, their planner, they're starting to go, oh, okay, now I'm getting it. And so I had one woman say to me, and she was one of these women, she's very creative, and she said, I was one of those women. My husband dragged me to the meetings. I glazed over. And she went through my course, and she said, she said, we had a meeting with our advisor, and she said, I sat up straight and I asked questions with confidence. And if I didn't understand what he said, I stopped him and I asked him to explain the concept. And that's what I want. I want women to have that confidence to even ask the questions, because I think right now they're so intimidated that they don't even ask the questions because they don't even know where to start.
Right. Absolutely right. That's wonderful. She gathered that from your courses and your book. All right. And then protect and plan, your sixth pillar.
Yeah, the sixth pillar is all about insurance and estate planning. And I think those are two really important components of your overall plan that, insurance can get overlooked at times, but it is really important to have the right insurance in place depending on your stage of life, right? I mean, It's going to if you're, 35 and you've got a mortgage and kids, that you're going to have to put through college, or you're 65 or 70. So I think understanding that and then estate planning is so important. And, I say to them, don't send your family on a scavenger hunt at the time of death.
I get it.
Right?
Yes.
I mean, so many people do that. And, so plan it out so that, when somebody dies in your family, it's hard enough. There's enough emotion and grief and, so don't make it harder by not having things planned out so they don't have any idea where anything is at or what you wanted to have happened or, so I think that's just a really important component of it. And then, Andy, I actually wrap it all up with your heartfelt legacy. So what is it that you want this to mean? And your legacy is so much more than, what happens to your money after you die. Your legacy is also about what you're doing while you're here. And so I think talking about that, and women tend to be very charitably inclined, and so, there are things that they can do now. And I think the other thing that happens is when they get this grasp of their entire financial situation, they realize that they actually probably have the capability to be more charitable than they have been.
Oh, that's amazing. Yes. And then after that, after they gain that control, so to speak, there's got to be a sense of relief and a real relaxation, because now you've got it. You're sort of under control and you've made the plan, and then they can live their life.
Yeah, no, that's very true. I had one woman say to me, she said, by learning more and understanding my financial situation better, my financial stress has been dramatically reduced.
Absolutely. Jayne Ellegard is my guest, and she's written the book Financial Empowerment for Women, Your Guide to Courage, Confidence, and Wisdom. Can anyone read this book age-wise? Are you appealing to the 25-year-old that's starting their career, or the 65, 70-year-old who's on the verge of retirement?
It is for every woman. And, regardless of age, I've had a lot of people who've read the book say, I'm going to give this as college graduation gift to everybody, I know graduating, or it's going to be my new bridal shower gift, or, it's going to be what I'm going to give to my friends who are retiring or who've just gone through a divorce. So I think it's a book that can really appeal to any woman who has not taken the time, to understand her financial situation.
Right. And in the language that they can understand, and not trying to be over their head, that you're speaking in common everyday language.
Exactly. And the other thing that I do in the book, Andy, is I share a lot of stories. The women who have gone through my courses were incredibly generous in letting me share their stories. And, so what I'm hoping is that they identify, with one or more of the women in the stories. And I have stories of women, ages, 30 to 65, 75. And so, I think there's something in there for everybody.
I would believe it. Well, certainly for me, I'm going to do the same thing, because I have 6 daughters. And so I've been in therapy for years, I know. But so I'm going to buy it for them. I mean, and they're fortunately in good situations, but I want to make sure they're in better situations. This sounds remarkable. And you talked about your courses. Someone can they connect with you online?
Oh, I'd love to have them connect with me. So my website is www.elegantwealth.com, and elegant is spelled with two L's, Ellegant, like my last name, Ellegard. That has two L's. So, and on there, they can hit a Let's Connect button, and we can set up a little conversation. I did also want to share with you. So I am right now running a special on my book. I call it a 6-pack. And
That's what I need. That's what I need, Jayne.
I know. So it's buy 5, get 1 free. And so you can get a 6-pack on my website as well.
I'll be your first customer. Good grief.
Fantastic.
It's called Financial Empowerment for Women, Your Guide to Courage, Confidence, and Wisdom. Ladies, this is a must-read. Jayne Ellegard. Jayne, it's been a pleasure. Thank you so much.
Thank you for having me, Andy.